Well, we'll skip all that. So now that we're going, we just got to talking. Raylan, thank you so much for doing this podcast with me. I've known you for, I don't know, like maybe about like 7, well, not quite that long, but right, maybe around like 5 or 6 years, something like that. So I met you and Joe, your wife, at the Rock Bible Church when I started going, and since then,
I think even before that, I met you 1 or 2 times with Zeb.
Oh, true. Yeah, true. Yeah. But yeah, so stepping into my faith and starting to go to church and being around people like you and Joanne and all of those wonderful people at church has just been an honor. So seeing all the cool things that you do and just being able to visualize and see, you guys would have church groups, where you let people into your homes and have all of these like wonderful weekend church groups and just worship nights and stuff like that. And I was like, this is right. This is where you learn to be equally yoked with other people and learn and just be spiritually encased, you know what I mean? And just loved, because it's a cruel world out there. And so, and seeing all the cool stuff that you do, it's just awesome, especially with men. And that's why I wanted you on the show, was to be able to talk about your work with men, because we need sound, strong, spiritually strong men in this world, and it's just so necessary in a world where we've gotten away from that and we've crushed you guys, and it's not right. And so we're totally gonna dive into that, for sure. So
Yes.
I'll let me pull on my phone here and introduce you. All right. So Raylan Heck is a Wyoming native, Army Ranger, and holds a bachelor's degree in psychology. His life has been shaped both by real-world combat experience and the deeper internal war of identity, discipline, and truth. He is the founder of Sovereign Savage, a men's formation movement focused on alignment, faith-driven leadership, and living with clarity and conviction in every area of life. He is a husband and father of 2 daughters, grounded by a strong faith-centered marriage that continues to refine and anchor his leadership at home. His oldest daughter, a former world-ranked Olympic lifter, that's so awesome, is now married and expecting her first child. That's so awesome to see. Gives me chills. That's so great. His youngest daughter lives at home, competing as a beauty pageant queen, singing the national anthem, and training in Jiu-Jitsu. Beauty and like fierce femininity, right?
She is both.
Raylan's work bridges strength and stillness, calling men to lead their lives with discipline, truth, and spiritual authority. I really loved that last sentence. That really resonated with me, calling men to lead their lives with discipline, truth, and spiritual authority. Because I think we get into the lie that you have to respect men just because of their gender, right? And people who look at the Christian faith and look and take Bible verses out of context think that, we're supposed to submit to men and just do whatever they say, but that's not true. But on the other hand, if you look biblically, you guys have that authority and you're given that authority for a reason. And I really wanted you to talk about that a little bit more, about what you're doing with these men with Sovereign Savage, and talk a little bit more about the spiritual authority.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
And what else is coming up right now? If I can just share, like when you're reading that, it's unreal to, I even feel it right now. When you're reading that and then really getting into just the family and then these things, it's like quite a time unreal to be like, as you're reading that, to know that it's true, and then to feel it like internally. I'm like, that is who I am. And so when you're reading that, like the depth of what those things are, I know what those are, and I'm connected to those, especially my wife and my daughters. And so just when you read that, thank you. It was good. And then plus I wanted to touch on like your growth that I've watched these past years is also, it's amazing to see, because we can copy and paste and repost and do all these things on Facebook to try to represent who we are, or you can actually take the hits and step out in faith and speak, and really try to find all these things and speak, whatever your truth, but that deep parts of your soul, and to watch you share that stuff and then to keep growing. That's awesome to see in this culture where we're at.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So the spiritual authority stuff, I think it's interesting, the spiritual authority, because military, we feel like it's earned, and the more you go up in rank, the more authority you have. And so you're able to speak from a place. I think our culture, the spiritual authority isn't earned. Almost everything is completely opposite, it feels like to me, in the spiritual realm. And it's not earned. It's already given, and there's already this pathway and all these things. And so that spiritual authority, as I understand and submit myself to that there's like this power that comes from it, like, and learning, like we call it predictable power. And so to be able to be in this place of predictable power, knowing who I am in reality, but the spiritual authority that I also have, just given to me from God, like, that's where I try to operate from and then navigate reality from. And that's the same what we do with men, is like, hey, this is what reality is. I have this spiritual authority. I'm responsible of leading myself. How am I leading myself? My body, my mind. How am I in touch or connected with my emotions, my spiritual, being able to navigate that? How am I in relationship to myself? How am I in relationship to others? And so once I can start stepping into that place, how am I responsibly leading my wife, and all of it. And so it's very intentional what we do with these men. First, like deep inner work, but then once we do the inner work and then established as a man on the deep levels, like, how are we speaking and using our voice in reality? How are we impacting our wives, our kids, our families, and not just solely speaking at work, right? Like, oh, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to because I lead at work. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit different.
Yeah.
So
when you have these group of men that you're talking about laying the foundation, right, and doing that inner work, what are some of the things that you try to bring up to identify to, I don't know if correct is the right word to use, or lead in a different path, you know what I mean? So some of the stuff that you're doing with Sovereign Savage, whenever let's say a man comes in and says, I need help, I need that spiritual, there's something missing, and that's the spiritual aspect. My wife left me, I can't, all of these things come crashing down, and or I just don't feel connected with my wife or kids, and just all of these things. Like, what are the foundational things that you look at to bring those lies out of these men to make them build the stronger foundation?
Yeah. Knowing your story a little bit, the tough part is that's usually the only time that men will actually consider this work.
Mm-hmm.
No matter where a man is, he can do this work. What ends up happening with men is, I'm fine, I'm perfect, it's all okay. And you can look right in their eyes and they're not okay. Their wives will tell you they're not okay. The way their kids are responding to them, you can tell that they're not okay. Do the kids love their dad? Yes. Do they respect him? Do they listen to him? No. And so it's tough. So it's tough because they're overweight and about to die. Their marriage is falling apart. They're addicted to porn. They constantly, the scrolling on Facebook. There's addictions to the alcohol, but even the subtle addictions like that each man has to isolate to separate from, to escape reality from.
Yeah, escaping distractions from the real issue, right?
All of it.
Yeah.
All of it. So any man can really do it, but they usually only come at a time when it's like at the worst of the worst. Wife's going to leave or they're going to die. Mm-hmm. That's basically what it is. But we don't try to fix them. I know me. If somebody tries to fix me, it just doesn't happen. So I'll give you two examples. At church, they tell us we're supposed to follow Christ, right? So follow Christ, and here's some verses, and do this, and then just do that stuff, and then it's going to work. And it doesn't. We used to fight, my wife and I. Not bad, but bad enough. And I was an alcoholic at that time. I drank a lot. She complained a lot. We got in a fight. She stopped complaining. And once she stopped complaining, it really made me consider, like, I could see the likeness of Christ being lived out. So I could truly see, not somebody talking, but I could see her living it out.
It's real.
Because I could see her living it out, and she took everything to prayer. And I had to really consider, like, it hit me. And so it was like really the first time I seen Christ being lived out in truth. Because I seen that I was like, man, let me stop doing what I'm doing. And so I say that because we talk about it in reality, living this out. Like, where are we doing what Jesus says? Like, truly walking it out, living together, waking up, being online together, talking, communicating. There's so many avenues that we can have now that we don't do. And so with these men, the reason I call it like a formation movement, men's formation movement, is we bring them into formation. Not because you have to be the same as us, but we are living it out. So if we are living it out, you're going to be like, well, it's weird. Yeah, but it works. And it worked in the military to be in some type of formation, to go, hey, this is what we do. This is why we do it. We're going to be in formation together. And as that happens, men can see it in reality happening. There's also this deeper part when men are actually living it out together at the levels that we're experiencing in my group right now. There's a place that it awakens inside. It's like that. They talk about it being like that ancient belief or something waking up, not like being woke, but it's like this part, like it's true. Like, I know this to be true, but the world says it's not. I've been fighting and wanting to step out and do this, but the world has crushed me down and says no. I know that there's a God that exists, but everybody tells me that there isn't. So there's like this doubt and this disbelief and this unworthiness and all this stuff that's internal. So living it out, but then at the same time, we speak on truth every single day. And so when we're doing that, we're reaffirming what we already know to be true, rather than falling out of bed, going to work, and then being in a culture that is literally structured in a way for men to fail.
Right. Yeah. And I want to come back to that part where you were talking about you and Joanne, because...
Oh, you really want me to cry?
No. That brings something up that she said a few years ago, because that reminds me of my previous marriage, right? And there's... So when we're talking about that, you were talking about that given spiritual authority, right? And the world is telling you, no, crushing it, but you know it's there.
Yeah.
The more aware I become in my journey with my walk with Jesus and trying to be in this world where, my job is to help build the kingdom, right? And whether that's ministering to men and women. And what I see a lot of is when men get to this point, because men have confided in me about these things through my Facebook posts. They'll message me and just be totally honest, and I give them that place to talk about these things.
Yeah.
And they'll talk about, I'm successful, I've got all this money, I've got this stuff. There's still something missing. Yeah. On paper and in the world tells you to be a man, you need to have all this money, you need to have the car, all the women chasing after you, the good looks, the body, all of this stuff. That's what makes you a man. But all of those men are still missing that spirit, that last final pillar that is the pillar for the foundation of everything.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of sad because that's the foundation that builds everything. And so they're chasing after these things that are pointless.
And they continually over and over.
Yeah. And it's so great. That's why I love hearing about and staying in the know with all of these groups that are just building up men. And I'm like, I'm like, you go get them, because that in reality, coming from a woman's standpoint, I'm not saying anything about married men, but like, that's hot.
Yeah.
We want strong
men.
Leadership.
Yep.
We want that. We want emotionally sound men. We want spiritually sound men, because from my lived experience, I want somebody who I can follow and be anchored to their vision.
Yep.
To be a helper, because that's what women want to do. And I think, and I see it all the time, there's this divide, like men bashing women and women bashing men, and that's what the enemy wants. But what we don't realize is men and women complement each other, because we literally are using different parts of our brain.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Dr. Amen, spelled Amen, he's got years and years and years and years, and he has studied the human brain. Scans, he's studied it, and it is a scientific researched fact. I use a different part of my brain more than you're going to use a different part of your brain.
Yeah.
And you guys are built to use that part of your brain, to be leaders, to see things, and to be able to go out and wage wars.
Yeah.
And use this, go flip cars. Women can't do that. Like, I've seen it. Like, a man, just like somebody's stuck in there, one dude will go flip truck. Like, you think I'm going to go do that?
Yeah. So it's interesting to watch. Yeah, men are probably using this much of our brain, and women are using the whole thing. So, but it's like with my wife, like when I was in certain places, I wasn't able to lead. I wasn't choosing intentionally to lead in the right direction, even though Army Ranger, sniper, military, like all of those things, like wasn't leading in the correct way. Like you're talking, especially maybe physically in this realm, but not mentally, not emotionally, not spiritually, not connected, and not deep relationship. And once I really started understanding like who Jesus is and the truth that he brings and what he wants us to do, as I stepped into that further and further into that, that's when my wife, like, she slowly started to let the reins, like, okay. No?
Yeah.
It just is so real still.
Yeah.
So she just like, and that's what's tough is when men aren't leading, women have to. And that's tough. And so, and when women are leading and they've been in that realm for so long, it's hard for them to pass that back if a man is willing to step in. And so my willingness to just be a peanut brain nobody, just try it out, just to lead, we're going in this direction. And my wife's willingness to go, okay. Like, no, I don't think, okay. And so it's unreal because as she allowed that to happen, there's different times, okay, yeah, right, wrong, whatever. But there's other times where later on in that leadership, we truly had been tested. And I'd say, hey, no, like, what do you want? What are you saying? I want to hear all of it. She's got a lot of different angles and stuff like that. And I consider him and I check, and this is that spiritual authority part. It's like, okay. And I gently, right? I don't tell her no. I'm like, but this is the way I feel like I'm being led. Like, and I'm going to be the one that's responsible for that. And we're going in this direction. And she's willing so many times to go, okay. That's where where we get blessed the most. I quit $100,000 job. My wife was like, heck no. Like, what are we going to do? Like, and the Lord really placed, it's just been over and over. And to be able to be blessed, my soul from doing something like that, has it come back in money-wise? No. My soul, my spirit, my mind, my emotions, my choice being able to do things, well, it's changed the rest of my life, which is, no amount of money can do that. So the wife, and she allows all of that and encourages it. So now on the back end, my wife, she speaks to me and does that, but she is always encouraging me, always.
That's there was a book, I forgot the name of it, but it was when you're wealthy, that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be money, and that's a true test too of marriage. Is I've heard of people, they lose everything, they're living very, very comfortable lives, and then all of a sudden they just lose it all. You can.
Yeah.
In a second.
Yeah.
And then their spouses, and that's a true test of how strong your marriage is, right? And all of a sudden now their spouses are like, whoa, I'm not getting what I signed up for. I'm bailing out of this. Mm-hmm. And that's horrible. That's horrific that you have to find out. And so, it's a very tough thing to say, pick your spouse wisely, because you don't know until there's true tests how those people are going to be. I've done a lot of reflection in my marriage and who I am and how I was. And, a marriage is two people. I can't put the blame all on him, even though I want to, but I'm not going to, because I've done, I admit, I take accountability. And one of the things that it was a few years ago, you and Joe had a worship night over your house, and she got up and said something that really hit me, that I'm gonna cry about it. Dang it. She said, I was asking God, what can I do? What can I do for him? What can I do for him? What can I do for him? But then God spoke to her one day and said, you need to change something in here and look at yourself. And so, and she said, everything started to change. My biggest accountability that I have was trying to force him to see through my eyes, and trying to say, hey, no, this is going to work. I know it, because at the end of the day, let's just be honest, there were two alphas coming together, right? Yeah. So, but, well, I'm right. And so instead of me as a wife, I really, God was not invited into that marriage, which probably would have made a huge difference, right? Yep. Even though I've always been a believer. And so is he. It was just never invited as the center of that marriage. Yeah. But I tried to force things. I tried to force it, and then it sounded like it's all, I always heard, it's always something, Jess. It's always something. And then I would fight back like, yeah, because you're not doing this, because you're not listening to me. You're not listening to me. Yeah. Instead of being smart about it and saying, I'm just going to pull back. I'm just going to sit back, and I'm going to check out for a little bit, see if he notices, and see if he's going to make these changes like you were talking about, right? Like, whoa, where'd she go? The complaining, it became just like tuning out. Like, you keep saying these things to me, you're not going to fix me.
This is one of the biggest things that we step into, and it's walked with a couple divorced men or in the process of divorce, mm-hmm. and it is brutal to watch them to do that. And, everybody does. They want to blame the other side, and there's a lot of that. But then to really do the inner work and say, like, okay, yeah, like it was what it was, mm-hmm. And to be able to start doing that inner work. And so when we're facing that inner work, it's tough because we have to start to consider, like, the devil's been doing this a long time. Mm-hmm. And so the way this world is structured, it's not structured in a way that it knows you're supposed to speak gently to a man to reach him, and he wants the respect, right, and the love and all of that, right? And so trying to break those understandings down, the structure of what the culture has done to us, I continually, am I doing bad habits and stuff like that anymore? No. Like, there's like no real bad habits that I used to deal with. The inner structure of who I am at the core, it may still look good, but there's something that needs restructured. And then, Jesus, truth, relationship starts to hit on that. And then I'm like, okay, consider, okay, time to restructure that. What do you say about this? But it's so easy with the men. We've been trained in that same structure. We've been trained to go, hold on, no. And then we look out again and again, and it's performance based. It's like looking at like, hey, oh, I'm not as bad as him and I'm not doing him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they don't know what to judge really, how to do the inner work.
Mhm.
So I don't know.
Yeah. No, totally hit all of those things. Like it just always makes me think about some of the other, things that pop up, all of the little all of the things that my ex-husband and I used to say to each other, and I do really honestly think, it's just, if it's not, if God, what is the, I'm blanking right now. No man can tear apart what God has put together. Right. And so, but it's really hard sometimes to reach people in such a way that they're going to listen, and you can't force them. And I think the big foundational thing, and I think you had said it, I'm not sure, is you have to want to.
Mm-hmm.
You have to want
Yeah.
to do the inner work. You have to want those things. And it's kind of like everybody has a different threshold. Like what is it going to take? What's the giving point? What's that tipping point for a man to finally say, oh my gosh. And we don't want men to get to that point. We want to catch them. We want to catch them early. We want to raise our young boys and young men to treat a woman properly and to tap into that innate spiritual authority and not use it in such a way where you're demanding and twisting Bible verses around saying, see, you're supposed to submit to me. Yeah, but you're supposed to submit also, so, but again, there's that me. It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
I'm not about that. I'm like, oh, well, let's read this.
It is. And it's reassessing. And again, I think it's, like I had considerable loss in my life, right? So I lost my mom, my dad, my brother, and a double homicide suicide that my mother committed. And it's been 16 years. So that right there, that tore me down. And so coming back out of that and considering what it is. So that's why I think God, like with me leading like this men's movement, if I'm leading or sitting in the chair, it's because he's picked the worst of me. I just feel like this thing, like I had that experience, but it took that to get around my ego. That's how big my ego was in some way. I see like it took losing all three of them to really reach my mind and my heart and to reconsider in the suffering to come out and go, oh my word, I hated God. Well, if I hate him and I'm angry with him, then hold on, like who is he actually, and to find out who he is in the other process. So that's why I say the worst of these in the way coming from the Bible though, right, is like men, we don't have to go to the furthest part, but like where are you getting rattled to wake you up a little bit and start stepping in? So with men, even if they're starting to ask a question or wake up a little bit, I try to get them like, hey, maybe not yesterday, but maybe today you're wanting to wake up from your comfort, basically. And so to bring them into that, it's just, again, I come back to the structure of the world of what we understand to be working. And that's why I love the church. I love what the church stands for. It's tough because I also know what intensity that we are supposed to be walking this out. And I give you the example of like, even in the military, okay, join the military, go to basic training, do those things and live that out. That's awesome. But if you want more, you have to train more. You have to go to more schools, more classes, more leveling up, more spiritual special forces warfare. Like go in the depths of all of those things. Well, in the spiritual realm, you can't tell me that because you're overeating, you don't work out, you overwork, you base everything off of comfort, once you get home, you really have no discipline in there. You're telling me that you're spiritually fit? Like, what, by accident? Because you're American? Like, just the depth of breath of Yahweh, in other, you could say religions or whatever, they seek out the depth of breath. Mm-hmm. I mean, they seek it out like 14 years of that, and they just barely even acknowledge that they're breaking the surface. But an American, you tell him about, Wim Hof and breathing, and he's like, I did that. I'm good.
Yeah.
And they're like, how the heck are you good? Because, I mean, I'm a peanut brain, but I have to be in this a lot daily. I think the Bible, you got to be in it daily.
Daily bread. Yeah.
And so we as Americans, it just comes natural. It's like, does it though? Like, there's so much more, and we can experience things so much more. So experiencing the death of my family, that was suffering without purpose in a way. I just kept suffering. Now the Lord has really opened this idea of suffering well for a purpose. And usually when I get myself cleaned up, it's actually to serve others, and I'm not suffering any.
Right. Yeah, I like that you brought that up, because people want the easy way out, and I go back into a lot of these things. I like to talk to people when I talk to them about chiropractic and continuing it. I get the argument, I have to go for the rest of my life. Well, do you have to breathe every day? Do you have to brush your teeth every day? You have to exercise every day and eat every day?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you need to be structurally aligned.
Yeah.
You go back to the old habits that you had, and unless you change those habits, you're going to keep falling back into those old bad things that were feeding you bad information. And it's going to be a vicious cycle over and over. So you have to identify, like you were talking about, the men are just like, oh, well, it wasn't there. But then it's like, okay, bring it in. Let's get that out of there, and let's change that. And let's identify that. So you have to identify the problems, and then you have to change it with discipline and repetition. And that's hard, and there's suffering with that.
Yep.
But when you know what the end result is going to be and what it is currently, that's where it's good suffering.
Yeah.
You guys, these guys are like losing all that weight, going to the gym, fighting and having that end goal to beat these guys.
I mean,
that's discipline.
Families they're truly leading themselves well, making proper internal choices, being able to build up this, it's character and integrity, and staying in line spiritually, internally, and also what they do in reality. Man, it's a huge thing. Being able to lead their wives in such a way, you can watch when a man is leading his wife well, she's walking in a purpose, not solely to have to watch over the family. She's doing those things in a feminine way. And the kids, you can see my kids didn't turn out as good mostly because of my wife is awesome, right? But it's because we practice just what he says, and you can see the fruits of that. And that's why I know I was an idiot for a long time, and I still don't have it figured out. But all I do is just try to be obedient to the truths, the principles that the Lord teaches, and everything starts to just miraculously change. And it's people are like, oh yeah, it's easy, You said structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because they'll be like, I can't do what you do. I can't do that. And neither could I, neither could I. But I can't do that. That's all that structure and all that stuff. How well structured and routine are you at doing what you do already? That's crap. You're already routinely getting up out of bed because you have to, but why not get up because you want to for a bigger purpose? You already get up and eat bad food or rush off. What if it was for purpose? So their routine, if they stepped into a little bit of discipline for a short amount of time, then it becomes a habit. It becomes routine.
Right.
And it's beautiful because it not only blesses the man, it blesses everybody around him.
Right.
But we don't.
Yeah. And it's that first couple 2 or 3 weeks of breaking that old cycle. When you start seeing those results little by little, you're like, oh my gosh. So then, our brain gets that reward.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but yeah, if you can get past that first 2 or 3 weeks and start really getting into that, and then having a solid foundation and a solid group.
Yeah.
Accountability partners.
Yeah.
But you can't find the partners who are going to tell you, good job, you're doing the best you can. They gotta be real with you.
Yeah.
They gotta hurt your feelings.
Well, I've been showing up for 6 years now. 6 years for these men.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of mornings, in a way, it's No, I don't want to. And it would be easy in a lot of other groups. No, oh, you don't want to? Or okay, cool. We're just not going to today.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, like we look at accountability like in the military. You start getting to a certain level within the military. I'm not coming up and checking to make sure that your room's clean. I'm not coming to see if your bed's made. I'm not even checking your weapon hardly anymore. I may ask you, hey, is your weapon clean? How are you doing? What's going on? Like, what's the plan? What's your plan for today? Right? But it's not like I don't have to micromanage everything. And these men that are willing, this is the part, willing to show up, willing to reveal. Most these men don't want to be revealed. If they show up, they're going to be revealed, and that is scary. But the men that are willing to do that, like, hey, okay, you think you're awesome? Come show up for us. I dare you. Show up for a month. If you're that awesome in your Christian walk, then why wouldn't you come hang out with us for a month?
Yeah.
Why? Because their words, they get exposed. And once their words start exposing them, they can't handle what's being revealed internally.
Right. And they suppress it even more.
They have to leave.
Yeah.
But the men that stay, that have the courage to step into that, start realizing, like, all of us suck. We all feel unworthy.
Yeah.
We all feel like we're not good enough. We all have these other issues that we, from childhood and all of that stuff. The traumas, the compounding traumas, like all of this stuff. The realities of the day. It's interesting because men that stick around, which we used to do those things at the house and do all that stuff. And I love when the church does it because they do it better than I do. But what they're not doing, what we're doing, is like a special forces intensity of spiritual warfare on a deep, deep level and exposing ourselves to the depth of what it hurts. And when that happens, these men truly are changing and they're able to do that. And so it's just different.
The truth shall set you free, right? A lot of men don't want to do that. They don't want to. It's too emotional because they know they're going to be exposed.
Required change.
Absolutely. They know they're going to be wrong. And then once that's exposed, now they have to take accountability for it.
Yeah.
And so they run away from it and they suppress it.
Here's what I know about our group, though. Here's what I know.
I'm not saying that for all men. I'm just saying a lot.
It just happens. But here's what I'm saying about our group. And I don't know about the others. I only know the ones that I've experienced. And they couldn't give me what they didn't have. I see it now. They couldn't. And it's fine then. And I was in different parts of my walk and I couldn't give people what I didn't have as well. But we're doing it in such a way that these men can step in. They're encouraged rather than being torn down. They're encouraged to find the voice that they're listening to, listen to God, and then use their voice and turn it into an action, a purposeful action, rather than a performative one. And that's the way these men continually, I can encourage them for 6 months or a year straight, and I can still listen to them, and I'll have to slow them down. Like, I'm talking about internal, and you're telling and talking to me about external. Mm-hmm. It's good. You've been trained to do that your whole life. Mm-hmm. You see everything else out. I need you to do the inner work, and then we can go deeper. And that's where we're doing it in a very gentle but truthful way. And I say gentle because it's what I do, like God does with me. I take a knee, I surrender to Him. He shows me, and I'm embarrassed because then I'm like, you're an idiot. He shows me what I need to work on, and I go, okay, now we can step in. And so we do that with the men as well. Hey, you're wrong. It's okay. This is what grace looks like. Mm-hmm. Try to live that out tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then he comes back and he's like, man, I messed that up. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. How about you try it again today?
Yeah. Yeah.
No worries.
Why do you think it is that men are taught to just not have feelings and emotion? Why does it seem like that? Because obviously, we use our different part of our brain. We use more of our limbic system, right, which is emotion, right? And men don't use much of that. They use other parts of their brain, which is more directional, like external, right? So why is it that there's that assumption that men are not supposed to have feelings, men are not supposed to,
Yeah.
that like that's not considered manly? Why is that?
I think we get rewarded or taught in such a way that the world's structured. Again, first part of my book, like the first chapters I talk about it, the structure of this world is not so that we succeed as a man. It's just not. And so that structure for long periods of time works. But really to come back to the senses, now you're getting not just within trying to help these men understand what's happening, there's more deeper work about what you're touching on here. Senses, emotions, feelings. I believe it is much deeper. I trained men on it for a year more. Like, here's in the Bible, he talks about the prodigal son.
Mm-hmm.
And the prodigal son, when he finally starts to wake up, he comes back to his senses. So he's like, oh, it can be better. Like, it's better for the servants at my dad's place. And so these men, if they possibly are waking up, they're like, it could be better. Like, yes. And then being able, they continually, hey, how do you feel? What do you sense? What direction? They'll give me something from their mind, but they're not sensing. And they don't really, since they can't name an emotion or what they're sensing, it's obvious to see from experience now watching it, they're actually being driven by their emotions. But again, they don't train. Oh, you get led by your emotions? No, not me.
Yeah.
And it's like, really? You're seriously, take a step back. You're choosing that life. You're choosing to be overweight. You're choosing to be lazy. You're choosing for your wife to be nagging at you. You're choosing for your kids to disrespect you. Yeah, we love it. It's like, no, you don't. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, are you willing to step into just a little bit more? So when these men, if they coming back, like we start walking, we do some weird stuff in my group, like walking barefoot.
Can you? Okay.
That's one. That's the first one.
Okay.
So we'll do the ice baths, which is huge. Now we go out to the wilderness. We fast. I took men out for 40 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Ask the church, you want to pray? They're like, yeah. You want to pray like in the wilderness? Do you want to pray in the wilderness for 40 hours? You want to pray in the wilderness for 40 hours, no food, no eye contact, no talking, no nothing. And just be in prayer and meditation. Is it okay if I use the word meditation?
Of course, yeah.
I know they go weird. Yeah. So it's that part of being able, like that's what we done recently. It took 12 weeks, every single day for 12 weeks, showing up. These men intentionally did that for 12 weeks to prepare in a different way than what is taught. But I believe it's biblically, and I can prove that it's done biblically, chasing after the character of Christ and fasting and all of that. And we chase that out to where these men were very successful in formation, even with no voice, no looking, come together every hour for 40 hours. But the weird part, like to start walking just barefoot, if you step on a Lego, how bad does that suck?
Yeah, really bad.
It's not, you're like, well, you know exactly where the Lego was. Right in the foot, or if you kick a wall, you know what toe you broke.
Right.
The senses are super powerful. And so I've woken a lot of men up that show up to like, I feel just even your feet. Because if I'm feeling my feet in the moment, probably not stuck off somewhere else in this other alternate reality that I'm living in. And so it brings them into the present moment that God gave us. Being present, I have found, is the greatest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to create my past. I don't need to create my future all the time. I can be present here. And so that barefoot, just weird stuff to wake men up. And then they start sensing in those ways. And then I'm like, okay, you feel that? You sense that? You're here with me and not here? Let's do it here,
Mm-hmm.
And so
it's like a cleansing, right? You have to get rid of what I call get rid of the caca, right?
I've heard you say that before. True. Yes.
Caca.
Yeah.
And
100%.
sometimes you just gotta just get out there. And I don't think it's weird at all. A lot of these practices are done in other parts of the world. We look at other cultures and they do things like this, and they're able to hone in on that emotion, like that alignment, by doing those things. Like when Wim Hof developed his breathing exercises based off of the monks, right? I think it was the monks, right? But reading up more on him, like he actually got injected with E. coli as a science experiment,
Fight it all.
was able to get it out, no problem. So there's a lot to be said about getting in tune with your mind and your senses and everything around you. And your feet have the most proprioception, right? And so when you're able to do things barefoot, you're able to get all of that information in and change the way you think and feel around you. And then take all of those things in and identify your surroundings instead of.
So we talk about the same, like you're saying, with the heart, right? If I can start cluing in, this is how, like, I know, like, man, not very smart, I can't figure this world. But you probably know, like, that the studies, if you're connected to your heart actually judges or already knows. Like when somebody just enters a room, you already know before the brain even has a time to like say what it needs to do. You know, and when we can get into that type of connection of like, I sense this. I can't tell you what a man is doing wrong, but I know he's doing something. It's like, it's felt, it's known.
Right.
And so the senses, the heart connection, feeling and seeing where men are at. You can be online. We do, that's all my men are online.
Mm-hmm.
I got a man in Africa that's been with me for almost 3 years now. I got men in Montana, Nebraska, all over Florida. But it can be felt. And that's what a man that is asleep, that doesn't know where he's at, he doesn't know that all that can be felt vibrationally.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Right. Yeah. What was I going to say about that? It was, there have been studies, and it's not a woo-woo thing either. It's a protective measure that we have to listen to our gut for a reason. Yeah. We have that sense. And also, when you are full of the Holy Spirit, you become very sensitive to darkness around you. There was an example, I dated a guy for a while, and my sister she came down and she told me, she's like, I'm not an aura person, but he's very dark. But I was living in that darkness, so I had no idea. And so when I finally got saved and everything changed, my way of thinking, like I tell people, things got brighter around me. Yeah. Plants, the sky, everything, colors just popped out. Yeah. And then one time that guy walks behind me somewhere and I felt that darkness that my sister was talking about, right? Yeah. So it's not a woo-woo thing. Like you can feel that spiritual warfare, and that is a protective sense. And God just works with you all the time and everywhere you go as a protective measure. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say then with that, because it is something that you feel and sense, and it's known, and it's present. It's like warning signs, or like, hey, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
I also want to encourage, like, anybody that's listening and that sounds woo-woo or anything, it's interesting because it's not mystical. It's not magical. It's experiential.
Yeah.
And it is the most beautiful. And so, but before, it always everybody that was trying to get me to come into whatever this is, they always still try to make it sound like it is this mystical thing. Like when you wake up, all of a sudden it's like, and totally different than what it actually feels like.
Right. It's a gradual thing. And what really kind of gets to me sometimes is when people, will judge other people and say, oh, they're not Christian because of the way that they're living. Look at them. I'm like, okay, but they're still human and you don't know where they're at. Some people have this immediate, like, oh my gosh, I'm putting everything down. I don't know if that's rare or not, but in my experience, especially for me personally, it wasn't immediate. I didn't understand because I was still drinking a lot of alcohol at the time. And and it was still a stronghold that I was battling. The enemy couldn't get to me anymore and give me those suicidal thoughts anymore. So now he was still trying to like, okay, well, you still got the alcohol, so still do that, right?
Yeah, right.
And I still didn't understand what it looked like to walk as a Christian and glorify God. And so over time, I realized, putting the alcohol down and really working a little bit more and being more involved in the church and being around people and going to faith-based counseling and stuff like that, I was like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to be. This is what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah.
So you don't know if somebody's like freshly saved and they're like, yeah, I'm Christian. Maybe they're still trying to understand it.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, too, there are people out there just like, yeah, I go to church. We call them like what, Christian light, they're church and then they go to the bar afterwards,
I sat on the pew for a long time. Saved. I believe I was saved.
Yeah.
For a long time, he was not my Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there's a difference. And that's the thing. It's even with the men that we're in, we bring them into formation. So it's like this thing, but each man we encourage, and you can clearly see it, that they are in their own walk, their own journey, their own whole movement inside of a movement. And it's amazing to encourage a man from all of these different things, from those different ways, and still he can be, hey, if yours is no alcohol, mine's no alcohol. Alcohol will crush me and it will crush my family.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not your thing, if you're not ready to give it up, if you do it and it doesn't, no worries.
Yeah.
To be able to still love and encourage somebody where they realize like, hey, this right now, the Lord is putting on my heart, like I'm not supposed to do this. Right on. Let's figure that out.
Yeah.
Let's walk that out together. And I'm not scared of your darkness. Like I'll walk right here with you in that darkness and we'll figure this out together, but you're doing the walking. You're going to show up. You're going to do it daily with me. And in that consistency of obedience, again, the salvation, I think, happens in a day. The stepping into the obedience, that sanctification process, I think is the most beautiful thing that we get, this opportunity. All too often, men want that to just be gone. They don't want to really be sanctified. They don't want the pain that comes with that. They want the memories to be gone in a way.
Yeah.
And it to be, and I've learned like the torment is actually when the torment becomes your mentor, it is the most beautiful part. And to watch a man or watch a female truly step in that's why I love doing what I do.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I'm going to watch that.
Walking in the fire. You've been through it, and now it's our job to build the kingdom and turn around and reach back and grab those people and walk with them.
All right, let's go.
Because we've been there.
Mm-hmm.
We can't leave them behind.
No way.
That's not fair. And some of us have gone through it alone.
Yeah.
Right? God was always there.
Yeah.
But now we don't want other people to have to experience that same like isolation, because that's where the enemy will get you. Yeah. Ask a couple of questions. I hear a lot of, so I'm a product of the generation of women were getting into work, right? I'm an 80s baby, 81 by the right?
Yeah.
So I'm a product of the generation that was in work and dealing with, their parents, their mothers, just, it's like, hey, women need to be in the workforce. They were the trailblazers for women's equality, right? Mm-hmm. And then my mother was in that workforce now, right? And so both of my parents worked. They had jobs. And my father, I'm the oldest of firstborn. So I'm a firstborn, right? And I feel like we're like the ones that go against the grain all the time. Because my dad, when I've seen his parents, they are the quintessential 50s black and white show where mom was at home baking pies and dad came home from work and sat down and the table was made and the kids were washed and we said our prayers, and that was my dad's life. Yeah. But my dad was kind of a rebel spirit, and he told me from an early age, be a contributor to a society. But he said it in such a way that was not to be a feminist, don't let a man help you, you can do it on your own. He just wanted me to be independent enough to be able to survive on my own in the case where there was no man around, right? And be the girl on the side of the road that needed to call a guy, right?
Yep.
But he also instilled, because we went to church and even though it wasn't like, my dad didn't read the Bible every single day and it wasn't a thing in our life, we still went to church every Sunday because he would say, you still need faith in something, right?
Yeah.
So God was taught to me at an early age. And so, but But he also said that, you know, he respected the sanctity of marriage and respected that, you know, we still had a place, you know, but he wasn't like, okay, you're the female, you can't take orders from a man or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So it was just I really appreciated that from him to be able to teach me to be strong as a female. And he wanted me to have that fierce femininity,
For sure.
you know, but I ended up being a tomboy anyway, and I hated wearing dresses. So I don't know. I'm hearing up today.
You sound like my oldest. So yeah.
But yeah, so going into that, prefacing that, because I didn't believe in feminism, like down with the patriarchy, I do not like that whatsoever.
Yeah.
What do you say when women quote scripture and say that, see, you're being taught to submit to a man and we're not supposed to do that? It says in the Bible they're supposed to submit to. What do you say from a biblical man's standpoint? What do you say to somebody who's arguing like, well, I'm not supposed to submit to you like that? Why is it that I have to submit to a man? You know, it's not biblically sound or whatever. Like they turn it around to be like, I'm supposed to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen all the time and do whatever you tell me to do. I think that's the lie that they're told. What do you say to that?
My wife's got me trained just enough. I wouldn't say nothing to that because the lady's going to tell me I'm wrong anyway, you know? So
What I do know to be true in my life, we did kind of go over just the way my wife has just been.
I wasn't trying to put you on this spot.
No, I'm just messing around.
Perspective, like into words, so that way we could be like, look, that's not what they're saying.
I can't quote scripture. I'm not going to tell you where to find it, but what I do know is I know experientially for me, and I've been walking with men for 6 years, like basically daily.
Yeah.
I see men and several like grinding it out with these men. So I see it a lot. Again, I'll go back to the structure. I believe the structure that both my parents worked, all my parents worked, divorced and all of that. They worked, which is great, whatever. That's what they chose to do. Again, the structure, I believe, has divided a lot of things, and women in these ways are taught different and they believe different. And I think what I see here is we are seeing the product of that. What I'm trying to do, what I've tried to do with my daughters, right? It's been my wife and my 2 daughters, right? And so, as a man leading within that, it's got to be love. It's got to be grace. Like me being able to know what grace is with my experience from God, that might be too much weird, like God talk, but just experientially, just giving my wife so much love, she also has been able to soften up so much. And so being able for her to do that, experiencing that back and forth, I know my daughters have been able to witness that. Mm-hmm. And then witnessing that type of man loving his woman from the soul of who I am, my mind, my body, every part of who I am. I love my wife. And then she does the same back. My daughters being able to watch that in a world where, you know, like my daughters, they are powerful girls right where they are in reality, you know, a world ranked Olympic woman, like coming up through the ranks and she outlifts like boys, men, grown men.
I have seen it.
And then at the same time, she has such an intensity, but at the same time, she's so soft and so gentle. Now that she gotten married, she submits so well to her husband. It is the most beautiful thing to watch that come full circle. To watch and love my daughter in that as well. Look at your fruit. That's what I would question them. I won't tell them what it is. I know what it is experientially. And I would say, test your fruit. Look at, if you're arguing all the time, if you're not happy, you're trying to prove your point, you would rather be right than get what you want. Mm-hmm. Like it's tough.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
And so if it's not working, how about we try something that, why is it that, I mean, there's a lot of Christians that are like, I just met Jesus and it's amazing.
Yeah.
You have very few that truly like, man, maybe they really did step in and somehow he failed them again from their perspective. But the ones you're telling me, I remember being in that position.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what it feels like here. I'm not going back.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would encourage the woman, but here's tough. I would talk with that woman as well. It's tough because their men are so asleep and they're so hurt and they're just so used to their comfort and hiding and not taking that leadership. Like one of them's got
end up being put in those leadership positions when they're really not, you know, that's coming home when you're already like a working woman and you're out battling the world, and then you have to come home into battle. You don't get rest.
Yeah.
You don't get rest at all. That's a bad spot.
That's what breaks
everybody to be
with my wife. My wife loved me when I was the worst. And I will spend my life knowing that she gets the best of me. Like, I wish the men could really just experience that. And of course, I want that for the women as well, too. You know, it's tough to really reach them.
Yeah, it's tough, especially being like 44 and single and trying to look for that. I think the statistic of the men, like biblically, not just Christians, but followers of God, I think it was like 0.2%. It's not a good outlook out there, but you know, it's like, okay, well, just going to leave it alone. Just leave it alone. But it is a sad situation to be in, and I am a big, strong advocate of men finding people like you to look up to and to get into their feelings, to recognize that, hey, you know, we have a biblical, like, spiritual authority. Tap into that and be brought up in such a way where we can raise families again, and we can take care of our women, where we can be warriors, you know, for the family unit and for just the entire world. It's not just the family and our wives and kids, it's the world.
Yeah.
Because I know, being at church, I can feel the presence of it, and it makes me feel good and safe. It makes me feel very safe because, like I said, you can feel the presence of it. When you walk into a room and men are standing up straight, shirts tucked in, physically fit, and you can, like we talked about, feel the spirit, you know that's a safe place to be. But when people are just slovenly around, you're like, I don't trust you. And, you know, you probably don't even know how to pick up a gun, so it's going to be me saving all of
it.
Yeah. You don't want
Which in this culture, the same that most, I would say a large majority of men will not come to our group because they're intimidated. And it's tough because a woman that has had to do what you've done through the military and through your marriage and all that, there is a sense of strength that comes off of you as well, that they're intimidated from that part. And so hard for you to navigate both, being that leader, that strength part, and then still being submitting to like, hey, I'm open, let's go. But when they've been structured in a way to just like shy away from reality, shy away from real actual truth and depth, shy away from actual connection with what it, like, they can't, you're literally asking a man to do what he's not capable of doing. And that's
you hit that nail on the head very well. Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah. I know, I get it all the time. Like, you're intimidating. Like, well, you know, I'm sorry, but it's and all my friends will know it. Like, it's going to take a very strong man. I'm like, I know, but when that strength comes in, I will make space. Biblically make space.
A biblical man.
Yeah.
A biblical man that is living correctly will pass the test.
Yeah.
Why would you settle for anything?
Yeah. And I think over time, like, you know, growing in my faith too and realizing what that means, I work a lot on I ask God, like, work on me, and bring to light what the woman that you need me to be, especially for a future husband. Like, work on me so that way I'm not going to rely on him, because if he's going to be a biblical man, then he's going to follow biblical ways, and he's just going to step aside, and he's going to let that little hurricane that is me, you know, just but I don't want to be that hurricane for somebody. You know what I mean? I want to be that biblical woman so that I don't put him into that fight. That way he knows that I'm fighting alongside him instead of against him.
Yep.
So there in that is we see these men stepping up and doing that internal work. But for the women, we need to be doing that too, 100%, because we need to do that for y'all.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why I will never forget what Joe said.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm glad you brought your book, The Consecrated Man, Living Aligned in a World of Chaos. I'm going to read the back here because this was really cool and I had snapshotted it, but I'm glad you bought the book. The world is loud, chaotic, and hostile to the formation of strong men. Most warriors feel this pressure but never learn how to stand inside it without fragmenting. The Consecrated Man exposes the unseen war beneath life, the war for identity, obedience, and spiritual authority. This book will confront the false self that learned to survive but never learned to submit, the drift that hides behind comfort, control, and distraction, the internal battles most men never name. It will not offer escape. It will train presence. Through discipline, stillness, restraint, and truth, the Consecrated Man calls warriors back into order, body, mind, emotions, and identity under God. This is not a casual read. It is a line drawn in the sand. So for everybody reading here, go to Amazon. This is available. The Consecrated Man, Living Aligned in a World of Chaos by Raylan Heck. Especially for men, you know, I guess women can read it too, you know, because we like to read stuff like that. And so we already talked about that. If you're looking for a spiritual purpose, if you're looking for that thing that is just missing in your life and you just keep missing that mark, come to God, find men that will go through the fire with you and bring you out of it. Last thing I wanted to ask, because I always ask this on all my podcasts, if you had any advice to give to a young man or just men in general, what would be the number one thing that you can think of to give advice?
The number one thing to give advice,
or just the first thing that pops up?
We truly don't know what it is for us as men to just surrender to the Lord. Like, too easy for us to try to produce, to perform, and say that God did it. We just claim it. Yeah, God was with me the whole time, and it's just not true. And if they could learn to listen to the deep parts of their heart and submit. We practice stillness and silence to the depths, to the levels that you don't see in culture. And in the stillness and in the silence, you can truly hear that voice, the knowing. And if they could submit to God in that way, I mean, it brings such power. Like, yeah, that would be probably it. Not much.
Awesome. Hey, that's powerful enough. So, Raylan, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess.
All right.